Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Wainwright and I'm a time tunneler. Now you might remember from my last video that I did for this channel, I went on a visit to the British Museum where I saw lots of different things. And one of the things I saw was something called the Benin Bronzes, which you can see here. Now these were amazing bronze reliefs which were created from medieval periods in a kingdom called Benin in West Africa in what is now called Nigeria. Now, I wonder if you ever wondered where the items in a museum come from. And unfortunately, the story behind the Benin Bronzes is not a good one. It's a very unfortunate story, but it's a story that has to be told because we have to understand where things come from when we put them in our museums. Now, like I said, the Benin Bronzes came from the Kingdom of Benin, and the capital of that kingdom was Benin City. Now, in sort of the 1800s, European powers, including the British, were expanding into Africa, and they were essentially conquering the countries there and taking the land that was there. And unfortunately, had been tied up in the transatlantic slave trade and all sorts of very shameful things that went on. In 1897, there was an attack on a British trading convoy from Benin City. It's argued about why this attack happened, but it's clearly people agree now because the British were being very aggressive towards the people in Nigeria, in Benin. People died in that attack, and the British retaliated by sending their army into Benin City and capturing it, which was a very, very unfortunate episode, and clearly terrible things happened there. And as part of that expedition, the palace of the king of Benin was destroyed, and thousands of artefacts were taken back to Britain, including the Benin Bronzes. And so we can see them now in the British Museum, and there is a plaque explaining what happened. But there are still arguments that go on today about whether those artefacts should be returned to the place they came from. Authorities in Edo State in Nigeria are arguing that the Benin Bronzes should be sent back, and they've requested them from the British Museum, and the British Museum is thinking about it, and they've written some articles, and there's actually an exhibition on at the moment that talks about where a lot of the things in the British Museum came from. Now in 2022, another museum in London called the Horniman Museum, which is actually very near where I live, actually agreed to return a lot of its artefacts to Nigeria, including some Benin Bronzes. And they had investigated this and looked into it and agreed that actually probably these bronzes had been looted, they had been stolen, and they should be returned. But the British Museum and other museums haven't quite decided yet what they want to do. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story, even though it's quite a sad one, is because it is very important to know where the things in our museums come from and the relationship that those objects have with their own history and the history of the people who made them and who owned them. And there's lots of other artifacts in places like the British Museum, including the mummies that you can see there, that people say should actually be returned to the countries that they were originally taken from. Now for your writing challenge, I've put some materials up on the website that your teacher should be able to print out and give to you. I want you to have a little read of those, and then I want you to write 2 letters. I want you to write one letter that is from the government in Nigeria to the British Museum, asking for the Benin Bronzes back and explaining why they should be returned. I then want you to write a second letter replying from the British Museum, and it's up to you what goes into that letter, but I want it to be replied to the first letter. I want you to write both of them because I want you to think about both sides of the problem here. So I hope that was interesting for you. I hope that helps you to think about where some of the artifacts in our museums come from, and I hope, as always, you enjoy your time. Bye-bye.